Hey everybody, welcome on back. My name's Matt, Cryptic if you prefer, and today we're going to be doing something that I have been wanting to do for a while, which is start on some beginner level courses for Maya. So what we're going to do is we're going to create from start to finish a teacup or a coffee cup, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to break it and then render it, and that's it. It'll be a really quick tutorial, really simple, but it's going to go over some of the fundamentals of using Maya. You can do this in any 3D software, so you don't really have to worry too much. Just understand the tools are different, and you're going to have to kind of figure out what you're doing along the way. But what I can say is that when you're following this tutorial, if you're doing it on another platform, just look up how to do the function in that platform, and you should be able to just kind of figure it out and go along with us. But let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and model the coffee mug, and then we're going to go and break it. All right, so we are in Maya, so go ahead and make sure that you have a new scene. You're all good to go. We're gonna go ahead and set up our project real quick. So go to your project window. I'm gonna hit new. I'm just gonna put this one in my normal drives. Coffee _ cup. All right, cool. So we'll double click that folder and hit select and accept. That's gonna create our project, all of our base stuff. This is something that you should get into the habit of doing every single time you start a new project. So we're gonna be making a coffee cup. So first thing we need is some reference for a coffee cup. So what I've gone and done is I've saved an image to my images folder in that project I just created. So we're gonna go to create, free image plane, and we will scale this up a little bit and just kind of move it into place. And then go ahead and go and change your image. It automatically defaults to the source images folder. I always get these ones mixed up, but that's okay. So here's my coffee cup. And all I did was find this on Google. You don't have to use this one. I think this is like some sort of Target coffee cup or something like that. More than welcome to use this one. You're more than welcome to use whatever coffee mug you want. It's the same process. So when we're looking at this, we need to establish what it is, like what shape we're starting with. So what we need to do now is decide what primitive that we're going to start with to best match this model so we can actually refine it faster. So I'm going to use a cylinder. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go create cylinder. And we're going to go hit R to scale up. And just continue doing that. R. Keep in mind, if this is your first time in Maya, W, E, and R are your translate, your scale, and your rotate tools. All right, so we have that up. I'm going to move this down just a little bit so the base of that coffee cup is kind of at the base of this. So what I'm going to do is I want to do some more finite adjustments. So I'm going to click my cylinder, right click, and go to vertex. I'm going to select these vertices, scroll up, and I'm going to hit R and scale them out a bit. We're going to start kind of forming the shape of this coffee cup. What you may be noticing now is like, where do we go from here? What do we add to this to make this rounded? So what we need to do is we need to add an edge loop. So we're going to go to make sure you're in your modeling tab, go mesh tools, insert edge loop. So I'm going to add one here, and I'm going to add one down here. And then we're just going to play with these, and we're going to hit R to scale again, and we're going to just kind of scale them out. We want to get that general shape of that mug. So we're still getting a lot of like kind of flatness to this. So I do want to add a little bit more and just kind of clear that up a bit. So we're going to go back to our insert edge loop tool. The other thing you can do is you can hold shift right click and you can go down to your insert edge loop tool here. So we'll just add a couple more, just give us some room to play. Let's see, we'll scale that one up a little bit. So I'm really just kind of looking at the silhouette of this, and I want to make sure that I'm getting that rounded look that we're kind of trying to maintain here. So that's much better. When we smooth this, it'll look really good. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to quad this out. So currently as it stands, it's not set up for a quad. This isn't necessarily a wrong setup, but it's not a standard workflow. So what we want to do is we want to go right click, go to face mode, click your first face, hold tab, and then you can drag and paint your faces. We'll do the same thing down here. And then we're going to extrude. So you can either go extrude up in the shelf, or you can shift right click and then extrude down here. So what this is going to do, we're going to hit this little scale button. We're going to scale this in a little bit, and it's going to give us an outer support ring. So what we're doing is we're kind of isolating this multi-pointed polygon so we can get rid of it. So we're going to delete that. Now we're going to select this top edge. So you're going to right click, go to edge mode, select that top edge. And then the way that I generally like to do this is I'll go into my top view. I will deselect two in this area. and I'm going to bridge. And then I'm going to add a division. So the bridge tool up here allows you to bridge polygons together, and then this division adds divisions into that bridge. So we're just going to add a single division. I'm going to go to vertex. We're going to go out of that, and the way I'm changing those is I'm just hitting space. So you can actually hover over your different viewports and just hold space or click space. Okay, so we have our base here. So what we want to do now, you're going to go up to merge vertices, and then we're going to go to target weld. We're going to click on this first vertice, drag it over. Oops, I had another one selected. That's my fault. Click here, drag, click here, and drag. So now this is quadded out. So we don't really have to push this any further, especially with something so simple like this. So we're actually just gonna leave it as is. And then what we want to do now is the same thing to the bottom. So we'll select the edge. Make sure you do the same edge. You don't really want to kind of mix and match. You don't want one rotated this way and the other one rotated that way. It won't look great. So we'll go ahead and bridge that. Add a division. This is a really good chance to highlight another toolkit in Maya called the Modeling Toolkit. If you don't see it over here, you can just go to Windows, Modeling Editors, and Modeling Toolkit. That's going to pop it open. Mine is, for some reason, snapped to a really weird place, so I'm just going to re-snap it back to where it needs to be, which is right there. Okay. So in here, you can access a lot of the same tools that you normally do if you kind of prefer to not use the little marking menus. I'm kind of that way. I don't tend to use them all that much. But from here, you can just hit your target weld tool. We'll go to vertex, and we'll target weld. Okay, so that's it. That's the body of the mug. So we need to pull this interior face inwards to create kind of that mug shape. So do the same thing. We'll select our face, tab, and then paint. And you can use control to deselect anything you select that you didn't need. And then we're going to do an extrude, and we're going to pull this down. And so you can see we start to kind of come through, and then we'll just hit E to scale, or R to scale, and we will scale it and kind of just get that in there properly. So that should be right about there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to insert edge loop, and we're just going to add a few edge loops on the inside so we can kind of match the contour of this. So we'll scale that out a bit. Scale that out a bit. Okay, so the next thing that we're dealing with here is if you look at this mug, the top is pretty kind of thin. It's almost rounded, so we want to kind of replicate that. So we're going to go Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop, or you can use the marking menu however you'd like. And we're going to go right there and right there, creating a new ring of faces. We're going to select that ring. We're going to pull it up. We're going to go to edge, select our interior edge, and kind of scale it out and pull it down a little bit. This is going to give us kind of that rounded look. And so here's where you can kind of verify the work that you're doing. So when you're looking at this, you can still see it's pretty kind of like, you can see all the flat faces and it's kind of rough to look at. But if you hold, or if you click 3 is going to smooth your item so we can take a look at it and see what that shape is looking like. And so right now, if I look at this in the side view, and if I turn my wireframe on, we can kind of tell the shape's not exactly what we want. So let's go ahead and refine a little bit more. And we're just gonna kind of pull these in because it got a little bulbous. We don't want that. And then the other thing is we're gonna go to face mode and select all this, and I want to pull this out. That's more like what we're looking for. So that's a pretty good setup right there. It's looking pretty good. All right, so the next thing we got to do is we got to add our handle. So what we're going to do, we're going to go into this view, kind of on our side, and we are going to extrude this out. So we know this handle kind of comes out lower. So the issue with that is that this ring kind of higher up. So I'd like ideally to pull from these. Problem with that is that we're not going to have the same shaping. So we're going to go ahead and extrude out, and then we'll start correcting as we go. So we'll go extrude, hit the little scale button, we'll extrude that in, then kind of just pull that out, And you can see this is a little bit of an issue. So the more you pull, the more it kind of like, it's like stretching and skewing. So what you want to do is you want to hit your world translate to just kind of localize it. And then we're going to pull, I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm using G to redo the task. So every time I do a G, it just does the tool and it does it kind of like re-extrudes it. All right, so that should be good enough for that. So what we want to do, go into our side view now. And then we're going to take, I'm actually going to turn my wireframe back on so I can actually see what I'm doing. We're going to take this edge. We're going to kind of just pull it up, and all I'm doing is double clicking that edge to adjust it. This one's going to get rotated a little bit. And then the same here. So this is where we're going to get a little bit more complex. What we're going to do is we're going to select these faces. We're going to deselect these and we're going to delete them. We're going to do the same thing down here because we want this to be open. So one thing we could do is we can select our verts. We can hit R for scale and we can just flatten them. And we're going to kind of try to do the same thing here. It's just going to get a little jacked up. I want to make sure it didn't get messed up too bad. Now we're good. Okay, so back to our side view. I'm going to go back to edge mode. Just rotate it a little bit. Same thing here. And same thing here. So we'll get those kind of up to the center here. And then we're going to go back into our 3D view. So you can see we kind of have our handle. We're going to right click, go to vertex, and then in your modeling toolkit, we're going to do the same target weld tool. Because this is the same object, it all works together. So if you have separate objects that you're merging together, you do have to make sure you combine them eventually. All right, so we got that. So our side profile is looking pretty good. Our back profile looks terrible because that is way too thick of a handle. So we can go into our top view. We can grab all those faces and we can just scale them in. And that's probably about where it needs to be. So if we smooth this now, take a look at this, we can see what we're dealing with. We have a pretty awesome shape so far. We just need to kind of adjust the handle to match the reference a bit. So we'll just pull this over a bit. And this one doesn't really have this like loop that we created up here, so we'll just kind of refine this a little bit. So we'll go to edge, pull that down, pull this down, and pull that in. And if you feel like you need to, you can add some edge loops in here to give yourself some additional control. So we can just go boom and boom. That'll kind of help you round it out. You don't have to because my smoothing algorithm will actually take care of it. But if you feel like you need it, that's totally fine too. So that's pretty close. This reference isn't directly spot on, so we're kind of just loosely following it. And then we're going to smooth it again, see what we're dealing with here. So it's looking pretty good. The nice thing is because this is such a weird, simple object, you don't really have to do a whole lot with it to just kind of build it out. So the last thing we need to do is we need to add some support. Our geometry doesn't have support right now. So there are certain parts of it that are kind of collapsing when we smooth it, and we don't want that to happen. So if we go to Mesh Tools, insert edge loop, I'm going to do an edge loop down in here. I'm going to do one right here at the lip. We'll smooth, and you'll see how that kind of gives us a lot more of a sharp kind of termination to this, and then we have the interior that looks good too. We're going to do the same thing on the bottom, except we're going to do it a little bit higher. We just want to kind of reduce the curvature down here. And then the last thing we're going to do is, if you've ever looked at a mug, there's always like a little ring at the bottom that just kind of sits there. So we're going to go ahead and add that. So we're going to go face, we're going to tab, select everything. I'm going to do an extrude. We'll extrude that in. Oop. Change it to your local. Extrude that in. And then just take this ring that just created. And then we're going to extrude it again, pull it out. And just ever so slightly. And then if you want to, we can also kind of just scale it a little bit because they're never really like perfectly cylindrical. And then Mesh Tools, insert edge loop. So we're going to support this real quick because this part needs to be, it needs to not get smoothed in, because you could tell if we smooth it, you can see how it gets smoothed into the body. We don't want that. So we're going to just add some support here, some support here, and see if that's enough. And that looks pretty good. So that gives us our mug. So that's kind of it. So what we could do is we can now center this again. We'll turn on our grid snap. We'll get that nice and centered. All right. And make sure you save. Make sure you save your scene. Save scene. We've saved this scene as our mug. I'm just kind of looking it over, and I see there's a little bit of an issue here, and that's just because we added that extra geo. So what we're gonna do is just to smooth that out, just pull this in. Same thing, just kind of distribute that a little bit more, and that'll clean that up really well. All right, so there's our mug. Pretty simple. That's a good introduction to modeling in Maya. But let's do something fun with it. Let's do something that a normal tutorial wouldn't do. I'm going to show you guys a little bit more of an advanced concept on how to break your mug apart. But the first thing is if we want to render this out, we want this to have some color. So let's give it some color. So we're going to click our mug. We're going to right click. We're going to go down to Assign New Material, go to the Arnold tab, Shader, AI Standard Surface. And then from here, we're going to do Preset, and we're going to go down to Ceramic Place. So this creates a ceramic material. You notice nothing really changed, but what we could do is we can change our color now. So let's go, I'm gonna do a light blue mug. I feel like that'll be a good one. So this is gonna give it a more physically based material. So when you render this, you're gonna get some nice reflections in it. And I'll show you guys how to do that too. So let's go ahead and get set up here. What we're gonna do, we're gonna create a bottom plane, scale that out a bit. And we're gonna take our cup and we're gonna move it up a little bit. Make sure you turn off your grid snap, otherwise it's gonna feel like it's lagging everywhere. We're gonna go File, Save Scene As, Mug _ Shatter. Save. All right, so what we need to do now, we need to shatter our mug. And this kind of works one of two ways. So what we need to do first is we need to actually smooth this permanently, because right now we're just working in smooth mode, which is just a preview. So we're gonna click our mug, go to Mesh, and Smooth. That is going to permanently smooth the mug, and it's gonna give us a much better result for when we do the shatter. So that's pretty good. You can increase the divisions if you want to, it's totally up to you. I'll go a little bit higher just because my CPU can handle it, but do whatever your computer can do. All right, so go ahead and save your scene. This is one of those things where you're gonna wanna save a lot just because you're gonna be making a lot of changes. So select your mug. We're gonna go over to our FX tab. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're going to shatter this. So what we need to do is we need to make sure we're zeroed out and cleared out on everything. So we need to go up to these three buttons. This one freezes your transformations. This one deletes your history, and this one centers your pivot. We just wanna make sure those are all cleared to go. We're gonna go to the FX dropdown, and we're gonna shatter. Hit your options box. We're gonna do the solid shatter option. And then I think for this one, I'll do probably just 20 shards. And then everything else here is good. You can triangulate the surface if you want to. You absolutely don't have to, but we're gonna hit apply. That's applied, and we can see now that we have multiple pieces. You can see if you go through here, you can see all the little different pieces we got now. So what we're gonna do is something changed. So we need to kind of pull this out a little bit and look at it. So if you look at this, it created a new material on the inside. So we need to change that material. So what we're gonna do is we're going to go to our Windows, Rendering Editors, and Hypershade. In Hypershade, you see this little shattered interior material. What we're gonna do is we're gonna right click this and then select Objects with Material. That's gonna select everything that has that assigned to it. And then what we're gonna do, and then now Hypershade, we're gonna create a new material. So we'll go to Arnold real quick and just type in AI Standard Surface. Just double click, or just click that, it's gonna create one. We'll name this Mug Interior. And then same thing, we'll just right click, select Objects with Material. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna find our Mug Interior and then assign material to selection. And if we look at it, should be good. So we should have a gray material in there. We do. Perfect. So what we could do now is we could look at this. So you can click on your mug and then graph network, mug interior. So we're just gonna take this and we'll make it kind of like a pearly white, and then we're gonna add some bump to it to make it kind of like bumpy. So we'll go to our geometry, bump mapping. And then in here, we're just gonna add a noise. You can see that creates a nice bump for us, and then we just need to kind of adjust the craziness on this. So we want this to be pretty bumpy. So we'll take our frequency ratio and just kind of crank it up. So you can just change these settings however you want to, it's not a big deal. This is just gonna show kind of that broken ceramic interior. All right, so we can close that, we're good there. Now, go ahead and save your scene. We're gonna create a little physics simulation. So, if you don't have this option showing up, you should have Bullet. If not, you can go to Windows, Settings and Preferences, Plugin Manager, search for Bullet, and then just re-enable it. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a group of rigid bodies, which is gonna be our shattered pieces. So we'll select these, and then we're gonna select our plane, and this is going to be our passive rigid body. So this is what it's going to collide with. So with those two set up now, if we play our sim, you can see our mug explodes, but it shouldn't be exploding like that. So we need to change some things. So we need to open our attribute editor. So what we want to do is we want to go to our bullet rigid sentinel state. It's up here in this little attributes editor tab. If you don't have this open, it's just right up here. Go to rigid attributes and then initial conditions. We can hit this glue shapes option, and that's going to kind of keep everything together. And we just need to change our collision type. So our collision type we're going to make into a hull. And sometimes it takes a minute for that to like cycle through. So we can see now that's a much better result. So that's doing what we want it to. So we just need to kind of increase the power on that. So we're going to take the glue threshold and change it to 4 just so it holds everything together. And then initial velocity in the Y, we're going to hit 1. Okay, so our gluing is still not really applying, so we want to make sure that we have glue functioning properly. And we'll change our velocity so it's a little bit higher. So we'll go to 5. I think that's actually giving us some weird results. So let's just do this. Yeah, so we're gonna leave turn that velocity off. So we'll leave that at 0. And we're just gonna increase the mass. So we'll set it up to a 10. And then we'll reduce. So these are just kind of the things that you have to play with when you're doing stuff like this. Is you're trying to figure out like, how do I best want this to shatter when it falls? So right now we're just not getting like that result that we want. So what I want to do is I'm just going to go in here. This isn't necessarily the right way to do this, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our gravity and we'll just crank this up to like -45 because we're just trying to get a fun result out of this. So we'll hit play, and then the mug falls and shatters. So that's how it falls and shatters. So how do we render this out real quick so you have a nice little animation? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go and save scene. Let's go ahead and save this as well as mug shatter _ render. And then from here, we'll just create some lights real quick. So we're gonna go back to our tabs up here. We're gonna go to rendering, go to rendering here. We're gonna create an area light. We will open this up, scale it a little bit, and then we'll just go to the Arnold tab in the area light, and we're gonna set it to like 13 or something like that. We'll play with this in a second. I'm gonna do Control D to duplicate this light. Move this over. We'll change this one to about 16. And we're just gonna create a really basic 3-point lighting system here real quick. And then go back here. And should be decent. So if we go to render this now, we're gonna go ahead and file, save scene. I always like to save before I do any renders or any simulations and stuff like that. It just kind of, it's better for you in your sanity in the long run. So go ahead and hit renderer, and we're gonna go Arnold. We'll see what the result is. So we can see we get a pretty decent result here. Not bad. We've got our basic ceramic material, so we're good there. But otherwise, yeah, that's pretty good. So we'll go ahead and go viewport 2.0 again. We're going to just kind of go right here so we can see the whole thing happening. And then I'm going to save it one more time. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go render and then render sequence. What we need to do is we need to set up some settings real quick. So depending on what your computer can handle, these are what you're going to want to do. It's going to be totally up to you. So we're going to go do PNG because it's an easier format to work with. We're going to be rendering in our perspective. We're going to change our resolution. You can go all the way up to 4K if you want to. I'm just doing 1080p for this example. And then we need to render this as an animation. So what we need to do is we need to change the frame/animation extension. So we need to go name. We need to choose one of these basically. The one that I usually use is name number.extension or name underscore number.extension. So we'll go ahead and do that. We're going to we'll render 100 and, we'll do 200 frames. Should be fine. And then we need to renumber the frames. Start number by 1, frame number by 1. That's it. Hit close. Go to render. Render sequence. We're going to choose the folder where it's going, and it's already trying to put it in images, so we'll do new folder, render underscore 01. Click that, select, and render sequence. And it's going to go through and render everything for us. Okay, so with that rendered out, we're going to go up here and select our files. You can't see this because it's on another screen, but I'm going to go ahead and I'll just open up DaVinci Resolve. And I'll drag my files in here. It'll automatically make it into a little video. And we can watch our animation. Is it perfect? No, but it gets to the point. It shows you how to do some little simple simulations as well as you learned how to do some basic modeling in Maya. So super cool, super efficient to go through, and kind of a fun little project. That's it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you give it a like and subscribe. If you are interested, you can support me over on Patreon, where there are free model downloads as well as some other perks. And if you enjoyed having a more basics tutorial that covered sort of basic intro hard surface modeling, let me know in the comments because I'd like to do more of these. So with that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.